Here.
Schumelberg. Present. Mayor Kimball.
Here. Make a motion to go into private.
Second.
Clerk call over.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Schumelberg? Yes. Mayor Kimball?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
No, you can stay.
Robel, I'm sorry, Steve, I missed you completely.
Councilman Rovell?
Present, thank you.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes. Regular meeting.
Sunshine notice.
Notice of this meeting has been given to the press and the public in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Law.
We have a couple presentations, or at least one, right?
Yes.
To, the county chief cabinet. Kevin?
Take your hat back for your son, or you want to? Jack, come on. Jack, come on. We're not going to stay here for half an hour. You know? If you come right here, you know, that's not for sitting. It's a walkthrough. All right? Whereas the New Jersey State Firefighters Mutual Benevolent Association held its 2018 Valor Awards banquet to honor New Jersey's bravest on Saturday, April 21st, 2018. To honor the men and women who sacrificed their bodies, minds, family, and to allow the citizens of New Jersey to rest easier day and night. Whereas Belleville Battalion Chief Richard C. Cavanaugh is the 2018 Silver Medal Valor recipient. Whereas on December 6, 2017, while establishing command and conducting a 360 view of a building, he discovered two victims at the second floor window. Using a 6-foot ladder until truck number 1 arrived, he was involved in the rescue of 3 men and 1 woman from the window. And whereas Battalion Chief Richard Cavanaugh acted in the highest tradition of the fire service, for had it not been for his quick decision-making, the trapped occupants surely would have experienced a far worse outcome. Whereas the NJSMABA members give selflessly each day by performing their duties and take great pride of Christ. Well, you're as bad as me then, it says Christ. So you're Christ now. And are humbled to receive the accolades for a job well done. Now therefore we resolve that the Mayor and Municipal Council of the Township of Belleville hereby congratulate Battalion Chief Richard Cavanaugh, recipient of the 2018 Silver Medal of Valor from the New Jersey State Firefighters Mutual Benefit Association, whose actions are defined what it means to set the highest tradition of fire service. Congratulations, we all signed it, and tell your wife to fix that price.
Jack, that's for you.
I would just like to say, first of all, thank everyone here for your continued support, Mayor and Council, over the years. And obviously, firefighting is a group effort, so I wouldn't be standing here today without Chief 4, who was with me that night when this fire came in. And of course, the other brave and professional men that it's a pleasure to work with. Thank you.
I'd just like to congratulate you and thank all the firemen, because I know they never shy away when they call the town.
Thank you.
Where's Cliff Lawrence?
Cliff Lawrence, how do you miss him?
Oh, okay, we gotta do this again. something with him, I guess he did that one time. Let me see, is it Christ in here? No, I don't see Christ in here.
You didn't need a letter.
Whereas the New Jersey State Mutual Benefit Association held a 2000, well, we all heard that. Whereas Belleville's own firefighter, Cliff Lawrence, is the 2018 Bronze Medal of Value recipient. Whereas in the evening of November 19, 2017, firefighter Cliff Robinson was off duty at his home when he was alerted to a fire alarm activation. Upon exiting his condo, he noticed smoke coming from a nearby unit. Gained access to the unit, used a fire extinguisher to knock down the bulk of the flames, gave a size up to arriving fire units and assisted the remaining residents to evacuate. Whereas firefighter Cliff Lawrence acted in the highest tradition of fire service, keeping the fire contained to one room as well as alerting and evacuating residents of the building as the fire department arrived. Whereas the NJSFMNDA members give selfishly each day while performing their duties and take great pride and humble to receive accolades of the job well done. Now therefore be resolved, the Mayor and the Municipal Council of the Township of Belleville hereby congratulate firefighter Cliff Lawrence, recipient of the 2018 Bronze Medal of Value from the New Jersey State Firefighters Mutual Benefit Association, who actions to find what it means to act in the highest tradition of the fire service. Congratulations. You want to say a few words, Cliff? No. Well, let us know later what was in that envelope.
Approval minutes,
None at this moment, Mayor.
communication, none of this evening.
Report of manager.
Order the manager.
Yes. Thankfully, I have a short report this evening. On Tuesday, May 15th, the rain and high windstorm resulted in 5 large trees falling, one on Smallwood Avenue, one on Fairview, one on Plenge, one on Hornblower, and one on Melwick. A few days ago, we also had a water main break on Geralman Street by the rec house. It was like a geyser flying into the air. I believe Chief McKinney has it on his phone, I don't know to see it. It was handled properly. Traffic was safely rerouted thanks to the police department, and North will in fact take care of that if they haven't already. We also had a service leak on Smallwood Avenue, which our men will be taking care of first thing tomorrow morning. And the last item I have this evening is the St. Anthony's Feast, which despite the bad weather on Sunday was successful, and I'm happy to report there were no incidents. That's all I have.
No?
The feast was very, very good. It did rain the last night, but we still had it going. And congratulations to the 2 firefighters, Rich and Cliff. You guys are awesome.
No communication.
None at this time.
Ordinance is for introduction.
Ordinance number 1 for introduction, an ordinance to amend and revise general ordinances of the Township of Belleville, Chapter 8-2.2, parking prohibited at all times on certain streets.
Move for introduction.
Second.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Rovell? Yes. Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kimball?
Yes.
Ordinance number 2 for introduction, and an ordinance to amend and revise general ordinances of the Township of Belleville, Chapter 8-2.2, parking prohibited at all times on certain streets.
Move for introduction.
Second.
Yes.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Rovell? Yes. Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kimball?
Ordinance is public hearing, second and final reading.
Ordinance number 1 for public hearing, an ordinance amending Chapter 23 zoning to implement ordinance amendments as recommended in the 2018 Master Plan examination.
Make a motion open it for public hearing.
Second.
Look forward to it.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? Public hearing. Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kimball?
Mr. Mayor, I attended this meeting on this re-examination report. There's one problem I have with the open space. Under open space, they're including cemeteries. I objected to that because you can't use open space for recreation or enjoyment by the public or anything like that. Exeter County did a survey of our entire county. Belleville should have about 380 some odd acres of open space. We've only got about 60 acres. So I object to cemeteries being included because if they do a survey and we've got quite a few acres of cemeteries in Belleville, that'll be added to our total. So it'll appear that we have more open space than we really can enjoy for our citizens. So I hope you take that out. Cemeteries should not be included in the open space section of this ordinance.
Do you have an answer for me?
Yes, good evening. For the record, my name is Dean Donatelli. Excuse my back. Dean Donatelli, I'm Special Redevelopment Counsel for the township. And the question that Mr. Frantantoni raised was raised before the planning board. As the council knows, in March, the planning board adopted the master plan re-examination report, which is based on a public hearing. And it was decided by the planning board that the open space would be not just classified as open space, but would be divided into open space cemetery, open space public, and open space private. So the planning board had basically given the direction to the planners to draft the ordinances in such a way which would separate those different types of open space, to distinguish it from developed land. The township planner is here with me, Don Mizell from CME. He can elaborate, Mr. Frantoni, if that would be helpful.
Thank you.
Make a motion close public hearing.
Michael Sheldon, 47 Village Street. Even though I am a member of the Board of Education trustee, I'm not really here representing the board. I also attended the planning board meetings discussing the changes to the master plan. One thing that I brought up as a concerned citizen and as a trustee, which caused me some concern. You look at our current zones, we don't have any special zones for our schools. All of our schools are subsumed in residential zones. Now, I looked at the zoning maps for many other communities, not only in New Jersey, but throughout the country. Most other communities have a special overlay zone for their schools. And when I asked the planning board to consider this, the second meeting, the response I got was, well, we're concerned about school number 9. If we recognize school number 9 as a school zone, it could impact future development in the valley. I don't really understand that argument. I didn't understand it then, I don't understand it today. But I think it would be wise for our community to recognize that the schools are independent of the residential stock in the community. So I would ask if you have any opportunity to consider creating a special zone to single out all of the schools in Belleville. Thank you.
Mary Ross, 95 Bell Street. I hope I got the right ordinance on the paper here, but I just caught something here. Is this ordinance pertaining to increasing the dwellings from 34 to 50?
That's what it says.
This is the master plan.
Yeah, or you increasing from 34 to 50?
In certain zones, yes.
So, can you, is there any rationale behind that? Why are you increasing the density?
I'm going to defer to the planner on that question. It's a good question.
My name is Don Mizell, last name M-E-I-S-E-L. I'm a planner for CME and I represent Belleville. Question is, basically what's happened is that the general business zone, the BZ zone, The recommendation that went through about a year and a half worth of discussion was to increase the density from 34 to 50 and to rezone some of the commercial properties to where they're beachy also. Dean, if you would hand me that map. So basically, going back 10 years ago when the master plan was last re-examined, one of the issues is Washington Avenue. So the solution is, or at least part of the solution is to rezone and be consistent with the zoning of Washington Avenue all the way from city limits to city
If
limits.
I'm looking at it correctly, you were talking from the North line to Nutley line?
Yes,
Is that the purple that I'm looking
that
at?
is the purple. Currently, it's a hodgepodge, it skips things, has different zones, so the continuity was what was emphasized, and that's why the 50 units per acre is.
I mean, all right, does that pertain to any property on Washington Avenue?
Essentially, any property that's contiguous to the right-of-way, and in certain cases, there's some added depth. But basically, it was to address Washington Avenue, allow more density. It doesn't mean it's going to happen. A lot of times, if you have a half-acre lot, the most density you could put on that using the ordinance would be 25 units. You can't just put 50.
I see the property across the street from the motorcycle mall has been cleaned up, vacated. Does that apply to that property too, increasing it?
If it's along Washington Avenue.
It is, it's right on Washington Avenue.
Yes.
It's a little small lot there to put in.
Well, again, I think, if I remember correctly, we looked at that as a redevelopment area. It's about 6/10 of an acre. So using the new zoning, you could put possibly 30 units. But what's important to remember is all of the plans that come to this zone have to go through site plan review from the planning board. So it's not an automatic guarantee.
It's not
that you
automatic,
can-
so I have to go in front of the board again.
That is correct.
I guess one more question, I don't know who put this ordinance together, we'll try to understand this here. It says, with the approval of the planning board, the applicant can provide for an in lieu payment of $80,000 for each required affordable housing unit. Is that part of a pilot program, or is that coming from the state?
You have an ordinance that helps address your affordable housing needs. So if a project is approved and they choose not to provide affordable housing as part of a, say, 10-unit project, there's a fee that's associated with the fact that they haven't created that housing. And that goes into the general fund, which is then used, not general fund, but into a fund that's used to provide affordable housing throughout. Relative to the question about an overlay district for schools, I thought it was a good suggestion. It was discussed in committee, and it was felt that at the end of the day, it was best to leave it as it was, which is a lot of schools are zoned in schools that are in areas that are residential. There are a lot of neighborhood parks that are zoned in areas that are residential. But the general feeling of the committee or the subcommittee that I worked with was that overlay zones weren't necessary. There are some school or some towns that are using overlay zones to identify school areas, but again, for this particular town, it was felt that that was not necessary.
Make a motion, close public hearing, move for final adoption.
Second.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
No.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? This is for adoption. Ordinance number what? Yes. Yes. Wilbur?
Yes.
Mayor Kimball?
I'm gonna vote no, I'm gonna tell you why, because the residents of Belleville are complaining about density. Here we're adding more density, so my vote is gonna be no on this.
Ordinance is approved. Ordinance number 2, public hearing and ordinance amending chapter 23, zoning to rezone parcels as recommended in the 2018 master plan re-examination report.
Make a motion, open it for public hearing.
Second.
Call the vote.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? Yes. Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kimball?
Yes.
Make a motion, close public hearing, move for final adoption.
Second.
Clerk call the vote.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
No.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? Yes. Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kimball?
Yes.
Ordinance is adopted.
Ordinance,
Ordinance number 3 for public hearing, ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation and to establish a cap bank.
Make a motion, open for public hearing.
Second.
clerk call the vote.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? Yes. Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kimball?
Yes.
Mayor and Council, as I do every year, I oppose this ordinance. The phony 2% cap that the state has put on municipal budgets, it really doesn't work because about half of the budget is outside of caps anyway. But to vote yes on this means you're gonna increase it an extra 3.5%. I mean, the people of Belleville are hurting. Our taxes are unsustainable. And every year you do it and you increase beyond the 2%, another 3.5%. So once again, like I do every year, please, I'm asking you not to increase an additional 3.5%. Taxpayers of Belleville cannot afford it. And entire New Jersey is leaving us, these taxes are now unsustainable. So hopefully you vote no on this added 3.5% increase.
Joe, is that a true statement that we always increase 3.5?
No, first of all, there's two caps. There's an appropriation cap and there's a levy cap. The ordinance relates to the appropriation cap. This year's appropriation cap, the index rate was 2.5%, and by ordinance you can go to 3.5%. So you're increasing the availability of the appropriations by 1%.
Just the availability.
Just the availability. The budget as introduced was $2 million under the levy.
Make a motion to close public hearing, move for final adoption.
Second.
Clerk call the roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
No.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kimball?
Yes.
Ordinance is approved.
Make a motion, open public participation.
Second.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kimball?
Yes. You doing, Paul?
I'd just like to know the dollar amount of resolution, the settlement of resolution 18.
I think the town's part was 180,000. I'm not sure.
Tom, that's for the line.
Number 7?
18.
18. I believe it was 1.1 million, the town's portion was
You want the town's
183,000.
portion of it?
What?
You want the town's portion of it?
Well, both, the settlement, 1.2 million?
To get to the bottom line, Mr. Frank Antoni, notwithstanding the amount of the settlement, the vast majority of that is picked up by our insurance carrier. The way we negotiated this through council and with the obvious assistance of our manager, the liability, the true liability to the township will be about $183,500, which is going to be amortized over 5 years by our insurance carrier. So, as you know, this is a very protracted litigation, but this was considering what could have happened, and the way we negotiated it at the end, this was a very favorable settlement to the township. The township's not going to pay $1 million. It never was and never would.
It may be, but we've got too many of these settlements and all the insurance companies paying. When you have too many claims, your insurance rating goes up. So our premium will probably increase again. So we've got to do something. We've got too many employee complaints about this town. And we're getting hit with a lot of money here. Whether it be the insurance company pays or we pay out of our dollar, it's got to stop. So I don't know who's responsible for whatever causing these cases to be brought against us, but it's got to be stopped.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Fleischman?
Frank Fleischman, 132 Franklin Street. First, what I want to say is that I find that the timing of this meeting is a little unfortunate. This is probably one of the first times I've agreed with Team Melham about the time of this meeting. I wish you guys had put it at a more reasonable time for more people to attend. But that's not why I stand to speak today. I stand to speak about the proposed Belmont Avenue project, which would bring 232 rental units and several retail stores to the property, locally known as the Cathmark property. I stand to tell you that I believe it is your responsibility to bring this project to a council vote before the reorganization meeting on July 1st and to vote no on the proposal. The proposal for the property itself is not surprising. As early as 2010, a report suggested that property could be used to develop a transit village. In 2016, the Affordable Housing Plan approved by this council noted a 1,500-foot radius from the Silver Lake stop of the light rail as an area that could be redeveloped. Last summer, the planning board approved the property to be designated an area in need of redevelopment, which often lends itself to developers requesting a payment in lieu of taxes agreement, which, unsurprisingly, the developer for this property admitted they would seek. If we're to believe the Pinnacle Development principals and the myriad experts who testified on their behalf for this development over the course of only 2 planning board meetings, this development would attract young couples and empty nesters who would shop at the Superfresh located on the property, use the light rail for just about everything else, and would use Uber or another service to get to other places. Their testimony seemed to dazzle most of the planning board members with easy and quick answers about parking, traffic, and pedestrian safety. The issue of soil and groundwater contamination, the enduring legacy of the Essen Chemical Works, part of which was located on that property, and documented by hundreds of pages of DEP reports, was barely made mention of, except to be referred to with the doublespeak term historical fill, and of course dismissed with a pat answer that it wouldn't be an issue once the remaining contaminated soil was capped in place. Mind you, the capping proposal was enough to get the attention of the New Jersey chapter of the Sierra Club, which took a critical stance on it. If the DEP reports on this property are too laborious to read, I recommend the book In Edison's Environment by Dr. George Hill, which was recently reprinted with updated information. In the book, Dr. Hill uses historical documents and oral testimony of former Edison chemical workers to shine a light on the deplorable working conditions and careless disposal of byproducts of the work that occurred there. Byproducts that have shown up in the soil and groundwater on that property in the form of mercury, arsenic, lead, and cadmium, just to name a few. I and several others obviously voiced concerns about this development during those planning board meetings, which seemed almost tailored to fast-track approval of this development. A third meeting dedicated to public input would not have unreasonably delayed a vote. But putting that all aside, the most baffling aspect of the planning board's approval of this project is that it made no demands on the developer for stipulations. Not one. Not a simple request for a deeper setback of the property, not a stipulation that the developer pay into roadway improvements in the area because the roads would undoubtedly be further battered and stressed by the amount of construction traffic, not even a demand of an investment into upgrading the water and sewer system in the area, which would have to handle tens of thousands of gallons of additional water and sewage. I would have at least expected the planning board, knowing the property's environmental history, to require the developer to fully remove the contaminated soil before allowing construction to begin, knowing that people would be living on that property. But no, the project was simply approved as is with only 2 planning board members wisely voting no. On top of all this, the developer had the audacity to admit for the record that they would be seeking a payment in lieu of taxes agreement with the town council, meaning they expect the people of this town to make up the difference between the reduced amount of taxes the developer would pay for the length of the pilot agreement and what the actual tax amount would be. Not exactly a neighborly gesture. The developer's grandiose vision for this project relies on more than a few gambles. If you don't know it already, much of the demographic to which this project would cater doesn't shop at Superfresh, no offense to that store. They shop at Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, and Wegmans. Their taste in home furnishings tends towards Pier 1, Restoration Hardware, or Williams-Sonoma. The developer is counting on the idea that these young people will simply shop at the adjacent supermarket simply because it is close. One of the theories behind so-called smart growth developments like this one, is that customer demand will bring in higher-end stores. In principle, and maybe even in practice, that might work, although the process might take years. But assuming that it does work, what's the other side of that coin? It's called gentrification. Younger people move in, buy or rent property, and rehabilitate homes and commercial property, which consequently increases property values. Sounds great, doesn't it? However, this same process causes long-time or low-income residents to leave or to be forced out because as property values dramatically increase in a short period of time, so do rents and housing prices because people who have higher earning power can afford to pay more. Now that Belleville no longer has a common sense rent control ordinance, the very real phenomenon of community displacement could become a reality in Silver Lake, which historically was a haven for poor Italian immigrants and their families. Belleville has traffic-congested streets, overcrowded schools, and aging infrastructure. Belleville has just had another water main break on Geralman Street this weekend. And in the middle of all this, Pinnacle Development wants to construct 2 5-story buildings encompassing 232 rental units and a few retail spaces, only a few hundred feet away from the incredibly busy and often dangerous intersection of Franklin Street and Belmont Avenue. Mind you, there was just an accident there 2 hours ago. If you watch the traffic on Franklin and Belmont during morning and evening rush hours, and most of the day on weekends, the traffic doesn't stop. It often bottlenecks, especially on the eastbound lane of Franklin. I would imagine 232 people at a minimum, driving cars, riding bikes, or even running across Belmont Avenue to catch the light rail will improve traffic conditions in that area. This development will undoubtedly increase demand for water and sewer use as well as police and fire services. Belleville is in the final stretch of reopening the Silver Lake Firehouse, something I also expect will happen before July 1st. I'd like Engine 3 back where it belongs.
Straight.
But a 1-engine firehouse would be an inadequate first response to such a large complex. Even if this development is only brings in 10 school-aged children, which is what was testified to, that is still 10 more kids in our overcrowded school system, unless the parents pay for private school. This would mean additional taxes levied on property and business owners, and thus a disincentive to people looking to buy a home or start a business in town. Members of this council, I think you know deep down this isn't a good development for Belleville. While you consider your vote on this project, ask yourself some questions. Knowing what you know about the environmental history of this property, would you live in that development with no reservations? Could you, in good conscience, allow a family member or a friend to live there? If you have a dog, would you walk him or her in the dog park they propose? You must consider the implications of this development for this town. If it is approved and built and a person becomes ill with possible connections to the soil contamination, or even the building develops a mold and water damage problem, the way that another Pinnacle development, the Sienna Montclair, did, you run the risk of not only a lawsuit against the developer, but against the town itself for approving the development. By all indications, 2 of you will be leaving the council on July 1st, and those occupy ward council seats. 2 years will go by quickly, and what you do now will be remembered in 2020. Opinions will differ on what changes Mayor-elect Melham has in mind for Belleville, and I hope he and the 2 council members-elect heed my words now. Belleville is a special place, rich with history and with a specific identity and character as a working and middle-class suburb. Those qualities should not be compromised in the pursuit of vague predictions of revenue or generous campaign contributions from developers, engineers, and attorneys, or a slick new identity to keep up the proverbial Joneses from other towns. It is in our interest to preserve that character and identity and use them as our guide and our foundation for responsible development proportional to the scale, scope, and character of this town. This council greatly surprised myself and others when in 2015 you unanimously voted down the monstrous Second River Station project, which would have put enormous 50-plus story buildings on vacant land in the valley, a development well beyond the scope of anything our town had previously. It was one of the few times that all of you voted against something that would clearly not benefit this town. You have made decisions in the past that were not in the best interest of the town and had negative consequences, but now all of you have another opportunity to do again what you did in 2015 by voting no to the Belmont Avenue proposal. Members of the council, it is your responsibility as the elected leaders of this town to put this project up for a vote at the next council meeting and prior to reorganization on July 1st. This project was proposed under your watch and was heard and considered by persons you appointed to the planning board. It is only right and ethical that you vote on it. Please make this project an agenda item for the next meeting and notify the developer and their attorney promptly. I would not want to see the developer file a lawsuit claiming inadequate notice. Once you do, vote no on approving the proposal and no on sending it back to the planning board. If Pinnacle Development wishes to submit a fresh application proposing only commercial or retail development, I will wish them well. I'm almost finished. In 1896, Nebraska Representative and later Democratic presidential candidate William Jennings Bryan, decrying those who saw gold as the only measure of economic progress for this nation, gave a speech in which he told the gold speculators, "You shall not crucify mankind upon a cross of gold." I say to you or anyone else who occupies those seats who may believe that large, high-density residential development is our town's salvation and wishes to provide generous financial agreements to purveyors of same, I say to you, you shall not crucify the residents of Belleville upon the cross of overdevelopment. Thank you.
That's a nice one. Anybody else want to talk? I'm sorry. You're hiding back there.
Good evening, Mary Higgins, 148 Brighton Avenue. Yeah, I'd like to add something about the Belmont Street project, the planning board protocol. Before the planning board had heard the testimony or the concerns of the public members, they were acting as attorneys for the developers. I mean, I was truly amazed. Whenever somebody brought a problem up, you know, with the historical landfill, several members of the planning board, before the attorney could even speak, were shutting down the remarks of the public. And it was clear who was going to vote for it before the ending where the public made their general remarks at the end. Which honestly, I was astounded that the planning board could conduct itself in such a manner. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carmela Fleischman, 132 Franklin Street. I didn't hear in the manager's meeting any updates on the lovely firehouse. I know it's done, kids. I know when the inspection is. So, come on, answer the question.
Carmella, you want to give us a little update?
I'd love to hear, you guys know. Come on.
We are, I'm in discussion with the chief on how we're going to staff that firehouse, and there's some equipment that still needs to be purchased. And we're speaking with Tom Hurd to see when we can actually have a ceremony and dedicate that place. And as you know, it came out beautifully. There's just some finishing touches that need to be done, and it's something that we're all going to be proud of.
I know, I've seen it, kids, but the inspection is this week?
I believe it is this week.
Okay, so July 1st, come on.
I'd love to give you a date, but I don't have a date for you right now. As soon as I get one, you'll be the first to get it.
All right. Thank you.
Any motion close public?
Well,
Just a quick comment to follow up to what Mr. Fleischman presented. He was, as usual, very eloquent and prosaic about your concern about our community. There's video for the two planning board meetings. It's pretty lengthy, it's almost 8 hours. But if you're interested, I have your email addresses. I'll send you the link to the videos. I'll even make popcorn if you want to make an evening of it. But it would be really in your best interest to not just take a report from the planning board, but to actually listen to the testimony and how so many critical things associated with this development project are literally being swept under the rug. And you really need to listen to, especially the testimony given by the LSRP, licensed site remediation professional. There's one point where Jeff Mattingly, I wish Jeff was here tonight so he could tell you directly in his own words, but Jeff asked him point blank, what contamination is there? And the LSRP says, well, there's some aluminum, there's some copper, and then stops there. So Jeff says, well, what about all the other contaminants? And the LSRP says, what are you referring to? And Jeff pulls out the DEP report. By the way, that site is still an active, on the state's active DEP cleanup list. But Jeff then tells him, well, what about the arsenic, the lead, the mercury, the chromium, which are 150 times above the state allowed levels? And the LSRP says, well, I guess, yeah, there are some other contaminants there as well. But it's this sort of rhetoric that those of us who are regularly at planning board meetings just get nauseated listening to over and over again. So please, if you can, before you take a vote on this project, look at the video, see for yourself what was actually said. And if you do go ahead with this, for the sake of Sophie, Ms. Burke, please never bring her to that dog park that they're planning to put on the site in an effort to soften it, to make it more appealing to the residents of Silver Lake. Thank you.
Thank you. Any motion close public hearing?
Second.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? Councilmember Robel?
You fell asleep.
He's sitting on his line.
Yes, here he is.
Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kibble?
Yes. Public hearing on the 2018 municipal budget.
Mayor, this is the time fixed for the public hearing on the 2018 municipal budget. The budget was approved by the mayor and council on April 10, 2018. It was advertised in full as required by law on April 26, 2018, together with notice of hearing of this time. Mayor, I have a resolution regarding the reading of the budget by title only.
I don't have the paper in front of me, so I don't know where we are. You got another paper there?
We need to move the resolution be discussion by title.
I don't have my glasses.
I offer the foregoing resolution and move its adoption.
I don't have to, I don't have the script.
Well, you need the script, we have to say the resolution is adopted.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kimball?
There, John, do this. You have to read it before opening, and then read it back. See it before?
Before opening this
Yeah.
hearing, I wish to outline the procedure. Each person's desiring to speak will rise and give his name and address before speaking. I will recognize one speaker at a time in order of rising as nearly as I can determine. I address all questions to the chair. Where necessary, they will be referred to individual members of the town council or municipal officials. Questions must be confined solely to the municipal budget before us. School or county matters are not proper subjects of this hearing and cannot be discussed or answered here tonight. Observing no further applications on the floor, I will entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Right.
Mayor, I move that the adoption of the budget be postponed due to further review of the budget and possible amendment.
So we got to open the hearing.
Open the hearing.
I move that the adoption of this budget.
No.
Observing
Open the
no.
public hearing, please.
Make a motion to open the public hearing.
Thank you.
Second.
Clerk call roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Robel? Yes. Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kimball?
Well, where are the papers for the budget?
No, I think
No,
that's pretty
where's
twice.
the script?
Twice.
Mayor, if I might, prior to taking comment, there's pretty much nothing has changed, other than some other review of this budget, as we presented on April 10th. The 2017 adopted budget was 64 million and change. The 2000 introduced is about 753,000 more than that. The introduced increase was on an annual basis $66.56 or $5.55 per month. On the municipal portion, the rate's going up 3 cents and change. This is still a work in progress. We're looking at consolidation. We're looking at reorganization of some departments to realize some efficiencies and some economies. And some of the drivers in the increase in this budget, and I'm sure Mr. Falcone will elaborate even further, were in fact municipal election, the addition of some police officers that we will be hiring this year, some additional personnel in the fire department, the garbage contract, utilities, collective bargaining agreements, some which are done, some which are still in progress, pensions, reduction in revenue, and industrial sewer user charges. Joe, do you want to add something to that?
No, that's pretty much the highlights.
Got it all.
Increases and decreases. Okay, and now declare open for a public hearing, 2018 municipal budget. Anybody want to speak? Mr. Franklin.
Section Frank Antoni, 129 Mount Prospect Avenue. I just heard Mr. Tucci's speech. That's something we hear all the time from the council and the Board of Education. It's all cliche, you know, the death by 1,000 cuts. Oh, it's only a $66 increase, it's only a $100 increase and all that. But we're at the point now where, you know, this budget now with the amount to be raised by taxes is $1.1 million, and it's cumulative. And like I said earlier, in the meeting, it's now cost prohibitive. A friend of mine just died, his wife can't afford to live in Belleville, she's moving out of state. Many of my customers can't afford it. they're really hurting in this town. And in this state, half of my family, over 27 members, moved out of this state. We've got to do something about it. A couple of questions I want to ask on this budget. I hope Mr. Picone has the answers this time. Under the reserve for uncollected taxes, I'm glad the budget shows we had a 99.6% collection rate. That's great. For 2017, we appropriated in the budget $155,000 for uncollected taxes. Now we got this fabulous collection rate. Why for 2018 are we proposing to put in there $424,000, over $250,000 increase?
It's based on the statutory compensation that the state provides for us. And it also includes having an overlay for the school taxes and the county taxes. So there's an increase obviously in the school taxes and the county taxes, also an increase in municipal taxes. And that combined with the shortfall in revenues from last year to this year produces a $424,000 reserve fund collected taxes. It's not a spending appropriation. That's just to assure that you're going to collect enough money so you can pay the county and the school the proportion that's due. But you have to pay them 100% of their revenue.
So the big increase of $269,000, are you anticipating a lower collection rate?
No, it's not based on a lower collection rate. The county taxes are up almost $1 million. The school taxes are up $350,000. I'm sorry, the county is up $350,000, and the school's up about $1 million in the amount that we raise. And like I said, it's based on a formula. We're using 99.6% to compute this reserve fund for taxes. So we're leaving a little bit of a leeway to try to generate additional surplus for next year.
Well, you go in the next thing, again, it appears that you create a surplus. I don't see the reason for increasing it by that much. But for 2017, you had a surplus of $2.3 million. And that was realized. And then for 2018, you have zero surplus anticipated.
Right. We only have available to use for this budget was $266,000. We decided not to use $266. Again, hoping to produce some additional revenue this year, so we have money for surplus in the 19 budget. And or when we do the amendment to the budget, we may anticipate that additional $266. The budget right now is under further review from the Division of Local Government Services. Once the budget is introduced, it's sent down to the Division of Local Government Services. They're reviewing the budget. They sent us a list of questions and their concerns. We're in the process of answering their questions and concerns. I think one of the items is on tonight's agenda is a resolution for a dedication by rider for affordable housing projects. They're looking for some additional documentation on some of the revenues they're anticipating. We're in the process of providing that. We'll also prepare an amendment, send the backup documentation and the amendment down to the division for them to review and approve before we can have the public hearing and final adoption.
Is that, you mentioned affordable housing. Is that
Affordable housing is a trust account. You can only spend it for affordable housing. We have the affordable housing trust account. The division said that they don't have on file a resolution establishing the so-called dedication by rider account. So that was one of the requests that they made, is to have a resolution adopted by the mayor and council for this so-called dedication by rider for affordable housing.
and that fund will be funded
It's
by...
dedicated strictly for affordable housing. Can't use it for anything but.
But when you say affordable housing, is that the result of this, the developers want to come up with this high-density housing, which a portion will be affordable housing?
The projects that are in process now, this has been going on for years. We have, like I said, we have the affordable trust account, but the division can't find the resolution establishing the account in Belleville. So they're asking us to do a resolution establishing that account. We already have it on the books. We've had it on the books.
But where are the funds going to come from for that account?
Well, they're going to come from developers, or if there's ordinances that are adopted that provide for affordable housing trusts to be contributed from projects come in, that's where that money will go.
All right, well, this is, so the council members understand that answer, complicated answer. This money is gonna come from these developers who want to build high-density housing in the township, which has about 18,000 residents per square mile now. We can't afford it. You can't get up Belleville Avenue in the morning or afternoon, and now it's even going back to 3 o'clock. You can't, it's a virtual parking lot. So we know that while it sounds good, affordable housing, it's just a catchphrase for these developers that want to build these outrageous multifamily rental units, which, by the way, I keep telling you,
Mr. Van
they
Teen,
reach
just on the
an
budget,
okay? Just give me an explanation on sheet 5, energy receipts tax. $5 million, where did this come from?
That's the state aid. It used to be called the franchise and gross receipts tax, they changed the name.
They changed the name of it? Okay. On sheet 9, clean communities.
Sheet 9 are grants, those are dedicated revenues that come in as a specific grant, and if you go to sheet 24, you'll see an offsetting appropriation to offset that. There's no effect on anything.
I know they are, but I'm specifically asking you for one of those grants called the Clean Communities Grant. For 2016, we received $68,905. For 2017, we received $58,500. And for 2018, you got in this budget $0.
Because you probably didn't get the letter from the state yet certifying that monies are available. That comes from the state. You can't put it in the budget until you have a certification from the state. Again, when we do the amendment, if it came in from the state, that'll be included in the amendment to the budget.
You'll have to amend the budget to get it.
Well, you don't have to amend the budget because it comes in after adoption, you can do a resolution to insert it into the budget.
Well,
It has no effect on the
This
tax.
$10,300 decrease from 2016 to 2017. The question is why that decrease, and I think I know the answer because I've been telling the council, we're not enforcing our recycling ordinance. I can bring you around and show you, number one, businesses, all the recycling is going into the garbage, residential. I've asked, but we don't put press releases in, pushing recycling and all that. This is the result of it. We took in $10,000 less, and the Clean Communities Grant is based on what you recycle. So we've got to do something about that. And well, on sheet 9, the other one, it shows up there on the recycling tonnage grant. In 2017, we received $20,815 grant for the recycling. And then this year, we're only proposing $10,166. Again, what is the reason for that, Mr. Cohen? Is it possible what I'm saying, we're not enforcing the recycling ordinance?
I don't know anything about enforcement, but you can't put anything in the budget unless you have a certification of those funds. It's obvious that we don't have a certification for those funds coming in as of the time of introduction, but again, that was in April. We may have a certification now, and again, they'll either go in by amendment or they'll go in by what they call chapter 159. Because again, anything on sheet 9 has no effect on the tax rate because it's offset from appropriation. So the state allows you to put that into the budget even after adoption. In other words, you get a grant in October, November, you can insert it into the budget. So,
Well, we could use another $10,000-15,000 if we enforce our recycling. Also, can you give me also on sheet 9, under urban aid, it says highway planning and construction, $185,163. What is that for?
It's the same thing, it's a state grant. Again, you don't have a certification from the state, you can't put it in the budget.
I understand, but what are we using that $185,000 grant for?
Well, go to sheet 24 and you'll find out what it's for. I don't know what the specific purpose of the grant is, but again, I'd have to get the grant agreement and see what the purpose of the grant was, and you'll see that it's appropriated for that purpose.
finished, Mr. Franklin?
While he's looking for that, let me go to
Well,
sheet 10.
I'm not gonna find it here. All I'm gonna find on sheet 24 is the offsetting appropriation for the $165,000. Again, you have to get a copy of the grant agreement to see specifically what the purpose of the grant was. And that'll explain to you what it's for. But you have a revenue from an offsetting appropriation. So the state has given us $165,000 to do something with the highway. I specifically don't know what we're doing for the highway until I look at the grant.
Well, again, this is the time when the public's allowed to ask questions, and we expect answers. So if you're the auditor, you don't know, as a council
I don't do
member,
the audit on a
You want to finish
grant.
up, Mr. Franklin?
what is the $885,000 for? On sheet 10, Cablevision, Verizon, the money they pay, the franchise fee, you know, used to be $50,000, gone up and up. Last year was $454,000, almost $500,000. With all this money, I and other citizens have been asking, when are we going to televise our council meeting?
Okay, Mr. Franklin.
Part of this money,
Now we're off the budget, that's enough.
this is in the
Okay.
budget.
When we're going to televise the hearings is not on this budget, so
Well, I'm saying, you have all this money.
now you're just filibustering on it.
Okay. Page 10A, due from library, $350,000. What are we expecting from the library?
It's the annual fee they get every year by statute.
No, it says, the council, it's due from the library.
This is the
That's what
amount of
they
money
owe.
that the library owes
They
us,
owe us.
all right, for services that we provided. That's just health
Hospitalization.
insurance, exactly.
All right, that's the revenue. Under appropriations, the revow, there's emergency appropriation for last year for $800,000. Was that money already paid in the 2017 budget?
The $800,000 was the contract that was awarded, and by statute, you can raise that over a 5-year period. So we're raising $160,000 for the next 5 years. The contract may have been completed and paid for, but we don't have to pay for it all in one shot.
So we're $160,000 a year for 5 years.
Right. That has to be approved by the division also.
And the Recreation Department, 2016, we appropriated $741,000. And again, I'm not against spending money, but in the right place. I support the Recreation Department. In 2016, we spent $741,000, and this year we're down to $662,000. Recreation, and I'm glad with the town, I've always fought no fees, do not charge the reservation, because it's only 1% of our budget, recreation. But why is it going down over $80,000?
I believe every so often you're going to refurnish the helmets and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, there are different requirements to recertify the helmets and recertify equipment. Some years we need a little bit more, some years we need a little bit less, all right?
And under page 17, under utilities, which I guess are sewer, water, and other things, why is there a line item called retro salaries and wages and salary adjustment, $150,000? That's on the utilities.
That's in the unclassified section on page 17.
What are these retro salaries? For who?
It's for the BMEA white, the BMEA blue, which are the public works people, and the LIU, which are some administrators.
Why are they retroactive?
Because the agreement goes back to 2017. That's right.
And under compensated absences, for this year you appropriated $33,250. But for the last couple of years, neglected to put the total unfunded compensated absences amount. And I asked last year, Mr. Collins says I don't have it, but you could ask and get it. Why isn't it put, it used to be put in every year, why are we intentionally leaving it out?
We're not intentionally leaving it out.
But what's the dollar amount then?
The dollar amount, I don't know offhand. But what it is now is there's a document called the user-friendly budget. There was 3 or 4 documents that were taken out of the municipal budget and put into the user-friendly budget. The document that you're looking for, the page that you're looking for, is part of the user-friendly budget. Unfortunately, this year, the state also created what they call the FAST system. And the user-friendly budget, as of today, is still not up and running. So no towns have a user-friendly budget to give you that information.
Mr. Franklin told me that's,
Yeah, well, that was
I gave
my-
you 15, 20 minutes, I think that's enough.
Well, there's no time limit on it.
I don't
But
know
those
what
you're
the
asking, I'm
distance is.
asking legitimate questions.
Oh, there it is.
But the
You can't fill
the
the rest of the
uncompensated, you had, if I recall, the last time it said it was close to $2 million. Is that a reasonable?
I don't know if it's reasonable or not, but what you gotta realize is that means that if everybody in the town that's working for the town was to walk out on December 31st, that's what the town would owe. But that's not likely to happen. So that's just a number that's out there that you, future obligation.
I know
I'll
that.
give you a number that's even bigger than that, the retirees with health benefits. That's something that's astronomical, not only in Belleville, throughout the state.
I know
And
that.
so far, the state hasn't asked to put that on.
And the reason I bring it up because, just like you said, it is an astronomical liability, and today's record has a big editorial about this. It's time to stop the uncompensated absences. It's killing our towns and our state. I think that's it. No, the last one, the tax appeals, $125,000. What specific tax appeals are these? On sheet 20.
That's an appropriation that we're providing for in case we get tax appeals and we have to reimburse people for prior taxes that were paid. So it's an appropriation that's put in the budget, and if it's not spent, we can also save that money and put it in providing for future years, so as to not to have a major impact on the budget.
And the last one on the capital program, you got over $1.5 million for vehicles. Some public works, I can understand, fire, but why do we have $445,000 for administration vehicles?
That includes police vehicles, that includes a new bus for the dial-a-ride. There's various vehicles in all other departments. I believe we also have a fire apparatus in there, we have a sport utility
No, that's a
vehicle.
separate line item, Mr. Tucci. That's $675,000 for fire vehicles.
What page
This
is
is
it?
What page on that?
40D.
Okay, first of all, that's what you call a capital plan. It's not a budget, it's not a spending appropriation.
Right.
Nothing there can be spent unless the governing body adopts an ordinance on first reading, has a public hearing on the ordinance. It's just there like, it's like a Christmas list. What we'd like to do,
Right.
what we would like to do, not necessarily you don't.
I'd just like to know why the.
We'll know if they adopt an ordinance.
$440,000 for vehicles for the administration department. The police, I can understand
I
police and
think Joe
fire.
just said he won't know until we adopt an ordinance,
So,
what they're for.
well, you're putting that dollar amount in the capital. Somebody's got some intent
I guess,
on
I
spending
guess.
it. I know how the
they
capital
anticipate that.
budget works. If you want to spend it, you do have to create an ordinance.
I believe that's what he's anticipating.
Okay, Councilman.
Okay, that's it.
Any more?
Mr. Shield.
I just have one quick question. Mr. Falcone, if I understood you correctly, you said that the school tax is increasing by roughly $1 million next year? Or I guess this year.
Well, again, when we put this budget together, last year's school taxes was $39,764,000. To compute the reserve, we used $40,500,000. Shoot the round number. We didn't have the budget at the time. Again, when we do the amendment now, we'll have the A4F for the school, so we'll know what the exact school number is. We'll put that into this document and come up with a new number.
So we, as a member of the board, we did pass the budget
Right.
about a month ago, and initially the increase was going to be $397,000. It got reduced to about $319,000, if I remember correctly. So it's not anywhere near $1 million. It's
Okay.
about a third of that.
Right, like I said, when we get the A4F, I'm sure the clerk has a copy of the A4F form now. When we get the copy of the A4F form, we'll Incorporate that.
Please make sure you get that update. Thank you, thank you.
You gotta go on the sheet. We may even have good news on the county. I was just trying today. We may have a slight reduction in the county tax.
Observing no, anybody else wish to speak before I close? Observing no further applicants for the floor, I will entertain a motion to close this hearing.
Maybe
You
motion.
did. Okay. Second.
Second?
Put the motion to a vote, or we take
Yes.
it, sir?
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kibble?
Make a motion, move to consent agenda?
Second.
Any deletions, anything?
Yeah, 5 and 18.
Five and 18, 27, 28.
I don't have any, because I have my glasses.
Clerk will roll on the consent agenda.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kibble?
Yes.
Move resolution number 5.
Clerk will roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
No.
Nattari?
Yes.
Marvell? Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kibble?
Yes.
We have a problem. This resolution has suggested 5 minutes. So it's going to be different.
Speed up.
I'm gonna get to the technical.
Okay, let's invest in it.
Thank you for calling your office.
Okay, let's go through the other ones, don't go on that.
Do we have a motion, move resolution 18?
Second.
Clerk will roll. I mean, yeah, clerk will roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
No.
Nattari?
Yes.
Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kibble?
Make a resolution, move number
37.
27.
Second.
Nora wants to talk about it.
Okay, well,
Which one do I want to talk about?
27.
What do you want to talk about?
If I want to talk about it in private, I'll talk about it in public. My understanding is that the two parking units in question here that are listed will be submitting the information again to us that they submitted on the 26th. We'll have our labor council review it, obviously probably have a conversation with their labor council, and we will come to a resolution on this one way or the other as soon as possible.
Is that right, Murphy? Murph?
It's not labor council.
no, we got a motion to roll.
We're going to talk about the amendment?
No, we're talking about the fireman's contract.
Right.
You requested more information so you could give it to the Labor Council, correct?
It's correct.
Right, that's what you asked for, right?
No,
Put it to a vote.
That's all we asked.
I think you can bring it to a vote.
Okay, clerk will roll.
If it needs to be amended, it can be amended.
I move 27.
Clerk will roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
You get a second?
You're right.
Second.
Second.
Oh.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes. This is to pass it.
Mm-hmm.
Nattari?
You can
Yes.
amend it.
Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kibble?
I make a motion to move
28.
28.
Is there a second?
Marie, you gonna second it?
Second.
Clerk will roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kibble?
I make a motion to reconsider number 5.
You on the phone?
I'm gonna change my vote now, but it's voted for the contract.
Can someone please move it and second it?
I move it.
I'll second it. We call roll.
Councilmember Cosarelli?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Yes.
Nattari?
Yes.
Strumelberg?
Yes.
Mayor Kennedy?
Yes.
Resolution approved.
New business?
I have no new business.
Marie?
No.
John?
Too late, pass. I make a motion we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
No, no, no.